Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As always, if it's your first time checking the channel out, welcome just in general. But we're back today. We're working on the 83 Olds Cutlass Supreme. It's Hurst Olds edition. For those of you that are not up to speed, now you kind of are. Quick backstory, bought this a few months back. It had been sitting for about 12 years, got it up and running, and basically took it for one drive, and now it's all torn apart, getting it back into somewhat respectable condition. Last video, worked on the floor pan replacement on the driver's side. Actually really happy with how that turned out for my first time ever doing floor pans or sheet metal work of any kind, really. I think they turned out really good. This video we're going to get going on trying to fix up the brake line situation. We've got a rear brake line that's rusted out and leaking all over the place, and then the front lines are, well, questionable as to how they're ran. Previous owner had put a line lock in it, and I don't think, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't quite think that it's plumbed properly, and I didn't get a chance to test it or anything because the wiring in the whole vehicle is so sketchy that pretty much anything aftermarket I disconnected before we even got going with it. So that's what we're going to work on today, is getting the brake lines rerouted. Not going to get to the point where we're bleeding them or anything like that. We're just working on brake line replacement. I had ordered some new flexible lines, the rubber lines, because they were on sale on Rock Auto. Actually bought them before I even bought this car, because, again, for those of you that haven't watched before, this is actually my third Cutlass. Well, this would be the second one, but since I bought this one, I ended up buying a third. But anyway, back to the brake situation. I had bought some brake parts on Rock Auto just because it popped up that they were on sale, and I thought, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have them. So already had that stuff. The hard lines, I did not order a kit. They do make kits where it's all, you know, pre-bent and everything. You can get them in standard or stainless and all that good stuff. I did not go with the pre-bent line set, even though the price is relatively reasonable. Main reason is because I know on the rear brake lines, if you want to put those in, especially if you go with stainless, because if you've ever used stainless brake line, it doesn't move once it's bent. It's pretty much it's bent. But in order to put in the pre-bent systems, you pretty much have to have the body lifted off the frame because of the way the factory routed the brake lines. We're not doing that. So I got a couple rolls of brake line. From what I've read, it's 1/4 inch for the rear line back to the T, and then the front brake lines are 3/16. Fingers crossed, that's what I bought. So we're gonna see if we can make that happen and get that all cleaned up. Once we get that cleaned up, and then probably in the next video, we're gonna work on rebuilding the power steering box that's leaking. And then I've got a pitman arm that needs to be replaced, and steering shaft in the next video, hopefully. Gonna do all that. Once we get all that done, then we can get the motor that was freshened up in a previous video. We can get that put back in, made it up to the Grand National transmission, and hopefully be out driving this thing here this summer. Unfortunately, it's beginning of April already, so we're already into the season, and we aren't ready. So anyway, follow along. I think I'm going to try time-lapse most of it, just to kind of speed things up. It's not, you know, if there's something I'm going to point out to you guys, I'll point it out, but for the most part, it's just bending up brake lines, putting flares on them. I've got a new flaring tool I've never used. We're going to give it a shot and see how that goes. So come along for the ride, I guess. All right, so for those of you guys that weren't around for the first couple videos on the car, and maybe even those that were, I don't know, I don't remember if I pointed it out or whatnot, but this right here is our line lock solenoid. It was mounted on the inside fender well on the driver's side here. And when I took everything apart, I just unbolted it, and it's just hanging off the brake lines right now. I think I am going to go ahead and put it back in this same location. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all the brake lines just kind of basically routed up to this area again, and then we're just going to let them hang out, and I'll finish with the flares and the fittings and everything once I get the fenders back on, so I can get this mounted solid and place it back on. I don't know if you can see it up above me, I could probably grab a fender off the shelf there and place it in, and I might do that, I don't know. But if you see me just bringing lines up here and then just stopping, that's why. It's because I'm too lazy to get on the ladder and grab a fender down. Yeah, basically it's the back fender, so that means I gotta drag everything down, so that's probably what you'll see me do. We'll see. Alright, so that took about 5 minutes to strip off all of the front brake parts, the hoses, the hard lines, all that crap. As expected, nothing came apart. The lines just twisted off, so I was gonna try to possibly reuse the fittings. I was thinking they were metric, but they appear to just be a normal 3/8-24 thread or whatever it is for 3/16 brake lines. So that's good because I have fittings for those. But the new soft lines, I don't know if the time lapse on the other camera showed up or not. But the new soft lines, they're all installed now. Clips are in, they're ready to go. So at this point it's just putting some flares on and bending some tubing. I did notice, and I don't know if this is how all of these line locks are, but these are not inverted flare fittings on here, they're compression fittings on here. I'm going to stop by my local O'Reilly's and see if they have adapters that go from their fittings into a normal inverted flare style. I'm not a fan of using compression fittings on brake lines. I don't feel that it's real safe, but I mean, if that's what we have to use, that's what we'll use. But I mean, I don't hear about cars, you know, real commonly with brake failures because of that, but it's just one of those, it's a personal preference thing. So but I'm gonna start getting some lines, kind of try to bend them up, see how it goes, and see if I can get some shots of it. I'm not sure because I'm gonna have like a whole roll of crap flinging around, and I don't want to knock the camera over and break it and all that stuff, but we'll see what we can make happen with actually recording it. Alright, so it is actually the next day. I got the front brake lines ran. I forgot that I ordered this copper-ish tubing, whatever, that you can basically just bend by hand. But I've got it in along behind the crossmember here. I don't know what happened to my brackets that I had. I got to find out where I set those, but for right now, it's just zip tied onto the frame. All three lines coming across, and then I've just got them stubbed out for right now. Once I get the fender on, we'll figure out where they need to bend and go up. But got the one going back to the proportioning valve or whatever that thing is called. Then you got driver's side one over here. So that's all good to go. I think the time lapse caught the flaring tool that I used. But I'm going to try working on the back brakes. Not sure if I'm going to be able to get a good shot or anything. I'm hoping I can just replace the line and not have to go off the distribution block over to the wheel cylinders, because if I gotta do that, then I probably have to replace the wheel cylinders and it's a whole mess I don't want to deal with. But we'll see what happens. I'll try to set you up, but not sure how much of a view you guys are going to get. So it's brake lines. It's not a big deal. Hopefully in this video we can get the engine back in, maybe even have it back running. I do have the transmission and the engine off of their stands, so those can finally be gotten the heck out of the way, and then we're going to get everything bolted back together. I got a new torque converter, got to throw some fluid in it, not a whole lot because I don't want to dump it all over, but get that thrown in the transmission here and get the two of them bolted back together and get it all back in there. So hopefully all goes well. Again, didn't record it, but new transmission crossmember is in place that will replace that piece of C-channel that the previous owner or previous owner, I don't even know who it was, but they cobbled that in there. Again, check out the other videos of the car and you can see all that garbage that we've removed. Now, I already have put the new motor mounts in, but I will go ahead and insert. I did record it. There's a lot of people I've seen on forums, Facebook groups have troubles with getting the, not only the placement, but getting the bolts in on these G bodies for the motor mounts when you do a small block Chevy or any other style of motor that you're putting in there. They have troubles with getting the bolts in. There's a few different ways about going it, but I went ahead and recorded the way I tried it on this one. I used like a telescoping magnet, stuck it down through there, put the bolt on it, pulled it up through the hole. Seemed to work pretty well. On my other Cutlass, I used the deal where you tie some fishing line to and string it up through there. That works as well, but a few different ways. I did record the one way, so I'll insert that in when the time comes in the video here and move along with it. Alright, so there's a couple of write-ups on how to do these bolts on the for your motor mounts over here. You can use fishing line, tie it onto the bolt, drag it up through the hole. That works. I did it on my other car. We're going to try something different. Got my bolt set up right here. It's got a lock washer on the backside and a flat washer, just because these holes are a little bigger than 3/8 that you use to mount these. We're going to try a magnetic pickup tool. You can see you can just stick the bolt on the end of it and it holds it pretty well. So we're going to try to fish that through, stick the bolt on it, pull it back up. Worked over on this other side, on the driver's side. Not sure if it's going to work over on the passenger side, just because this is where you got the fuel lines coming through. They might kind of interfere a little bit, but we're going to give it a shot over here and see how well it works. Might take me a shot or two at it. Let me find the hole through here. There it is. Like I said, the fishing line method works. I did that on my other Cutlass when I did the motor mounts in it. The only issue is that then you got to get the fishing line untied off of it in order to get your lock washer and your nut on it. And if you have large fingers like me, that can be kind of a pain. Or if you're blind like me, again, it's a pain, but it does work. Just figured I'd give this a shot. This has worked thus far. We'll see if we can get a second one in here. Come on. Well, it would work a lot better if this wasn't collapsing on me. I'm also not in a good position because I'm trying to get a shot for you guys. There we go. Ideally, you'd use a flanged bolt to bring up through there. My hardware store didn't have any, so I just got regular grade 8 bolts and lock washers. But ideally, a flanged bolt would be better, but we're working with what we got right now. I'm basically too lazy to wait for flange bolts to come in. There you go. That's not too bad. Alright guys, so I apologize. It is Easter Sunday when I'm working on this, and daughter was home from school, got called off of this to go eat breakfast with them before they left. Sent them along on the way and forgot to hit the camera, but motor's in. Did have a couple of issues with it. If you watch the other videos, I had to buy new pulleys for the power steering pump and the alternator and all that because the garbage that was on there before, nothing was aligned. All the pulleys and everything were out of whack. Assembled it as per the instructions for a typical install. Power steering pump was too far down and it was hitting against the steering box, so I had to flip that around like the instructions say you can do. But this bracket, your adjustment bracket on the top, I had to take it to the grinder and grind the bottom side of the bracket so that it would still rotate in there and be able to give belt tension and still leave a space here. So that was a little bit of an issue. The other issue was I also got ahead of myself. Not only didn't hit the camera, but didn't get the transmission lines in. If you're doing this like I am, where you're taking the whole engine and transmission out, putting new transmission lines on, it's so much easier if you put these on to the transmission before you stick it all in place, rather than try to fish them through afterwards. These are pre-bent lines. I got them either at gbodyparts.com or mikesmanis.com. I don't know, one of the two of them. I got some stainless ones on my other Cutlass and they worked real well. This one I just went with regular old steel lines. I didn't go with the stainless on this just because I don't know if this engine and transmission's staying in here. Probably not, so standard lines it is. They're pretty close, but they aren't perfect. If you do order them, they aren't 100% perfect. You know, stuff gets banged around in shipping, whatever. So you gotta tweak them a little bit. Much harder to do with stainless lines than it is with these, but whatever. So that all works, got that in. I don't have the headers on or bolted on yet. I just kind of slipped them in because I wanted to see, you know, now that we don't have collapsed motor mounts and it's done properly, wanted to make sure that we didn't have any clearance issues or anything. Also, even though I knew it shouldn't have mattered, I put in this is the steering shaft out of a Chevy Astro van, so I wanted to make sure I didn't have any clearance issues with that. Surprisingly, driver's side, tons of room. No issues whatsoever with clearance on this side. This side with the motor mounts not collapsed, I'm going to have to beat this pipe in a little bit. Looks like they had to do it to get it in before, but now that the motor is actually sitting up, because before it would have been sitting down below the control arm mount, but now that the motor's actually sitting up where it's supposed to, it's back into the control arm. So I just got to massage that a little bit. Shouldn't be a big deal. And then can move forward with everything else. But went in nice and easy. No issues there. The Crossmember, I'll have to try and remember to look and double check. I know I got it from Summit, and it looks identical to my G-Force one that I have in my other one, but I'm not sure if it's actually a G-Force Crossmember or not. Like I said, looks exactly like it though. If it is a actual Summit one and not a G-Force one, I'll make sure to put down in the description. It fit perfect, no issues whatsoever. I know that some guys say the Jags one doesn't fit real well. This one's from Summit, but I can't remember if it's the actual G-Force one or not. Just throw that out there. It fit great. Other than that, I think we're good to keep moving forward with stuff. Like I said, it's Easter Sunday, so I should probably stop here, get myself cleaned up. Got to go to the grandparents' house for Easter dinner, and then maybe we'll get back on it tonight. All right, so it has been a week since I've really had a chance to mess with the car. This happens to be my week to be on call for work, and of course 3 out of 5 days this last week I've been called out in the evening for emergency calls, so not not a whole lot has happened with the car, but I did get a couple things kind of, well, maybe sorted out. But it's Saturday. I'm still on call, but I'm going to see if I can, you know, fingers crossed, not get called out today and actually try to make some progress on the car. I did get the fan on, and that was a slight debacle trying to get the right size bolts to go in that. There are 5/16 with a 24 thread on them, which I had them, but the ones that were on it when I took the motor out, one was bent, so I got new ones. But I was at the hardware store and kind of wasn't really thinking about it before then. Decided to pick them up, got the wrong length, they were too long, so I had to cut them down and deburr the ends and all that crap. But it's you know, nothing worth recording or anything. I made long bolts short. So fan is on, and I started digging into the horrible wiring that's in here. I wanted to get just a whole new harness for the engine compartment, but unfortunately the one Cutlass that was in the salvage yard where I got parts that I talked about in the previous video, when I went back to try and strip some more stuff off it, they had already crushed it and it was gone. So unfortunately I couldn't get the harness from that. And I'm sorry guys, if you're a G-Body guy and you're selling parts online, I'm not paying a few $100s for a 40-year-old wire harness. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. So we're going to repair the one that's in there, and I think we're going to reroute the wiring from where it was originally. I mean, we got a couple of issues with this. This was originally a V8 car with an Oldsmobile V8, so starters on the other side of the engine from the small block Chevy. This has headers, not exhaust manifolds, so routing of wires, I want to keep the wiring that goes down to the starter away from the heat and all that stuff. So instead of routing it the way it was from the factory, we're going to reroute it. We got to change stuff, got to fix stuff anyway. We might as well extend the wiring and route it away from any heat sources and try to protect it a little bit. Did get some battery cables for it to get rid of the this cobbled up mess. I did pick up some fusible link wire. I'll be honest with you, I'm not 100% certain if it's the correct size, but it's better than nothing, which is what was in it before, which is why half the wiring is melted. So we're going to put some new fusible link wire in there and try to get the wiring situation figured out. Once that's figured out, then I can probably start with, well, along with wiring, the old computer control carburetor wiring is still, it's all chopped off, but it's still hanging out the firewall. And clean all that garbage up, get rid of all that crap. But then at that point I should be able to probably start working on getting the fenders back on. If you remember in the other videos, it's got a fuel pressure regulator that was mounted to the passenger side fender. We are still going to run that fuel pressure regulator and still mount it probably in the same spot. But in order to do all that, I got to have the fenders on. In order to put the fenders on and route all that crap, kind of need to have the core support on. So we're in the stages of kind of putting stuff back together, hopefully. Exhaust manifold, I did beat the crap out of it, and it's kind of clearing the control arm. I might take it off and beat it a little bit more, but there is a crap load of shims in the upper control arm on this thing, and I'm not sure. I'm thinking it's got way too many shims in it anyway, and that's pushing it into the header as well, but neither here nor there. We're gonna probably take it back off and beat the crap out of it some more. But yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at with things. I might just throw a camera up and time lapse it. I'm not going to go over a whole lot, but before I do that, I will kind of go through what I have for factory wiring going on and what I'm going to fix so you kind of understand. I'll point out a couple of the wire colors too, because I've actually had guys at the salvage yard, when I've been pulling parts off of cars, come up and ask me, because they've come out to look at the G-bodies out there, and they're wanting to know about the wiring, so they were going to look at the wire harness and yada yada, whatever. So I'll point a couple things out, at least what I know. I think I know. I have a manual for it, but I'm not 100% certain on it. And wire colors are kind of hard to distinguish on these cars because, like I said before, 40-year-old harnesses, heat, dirt, all that crap, kind of makes the wire colors sometimes hard to distinguish. But kind of go over that. We'll see what we got. All right, so I've got the harness. I don't have it split loomed or anything. I was just kind of running stuff around. And I did take and I degreased all the wires because, of course, everything in here, as you guys saw in the previous videos, was absolutely covered in grease. But kind of show you what I've got here. This small wire right here, this tan wire, that is the oil pressure sending unit, which I believe on the Oldsmobile was maybe up front, and I think the guy before, he had it up front here somewhere. I don't recall where, but, or no, he had it in back too. Never mind. But anyway, that goes to the oil pressure unit. The small green wire is going to be for your temperature sensor. That's what he had moved. He had it over in here, which is actually the port to go up to your heater core. Note on that, still need to replace the heater core. I did notice when I was getting in here, this box is kind of cracked and everything, so eventually that'll need to be replaced, but it should be fine for getting our heater core replaced and working. I probably just won't mess with the AC stuff for now, but you know, plans change. You've got two red wires coming off the harness. The one splits off. One side of it goes over to your alternator, and the other side goes through a fusible link down to the starter. Your other one is also supposed to go through a fusible link and down to the starter. They just had it wired straight to the battery, which is part of the reason probably why it was melted. That, and they had all the wires drooped down and practically laying on the header. So there's that. This wire right here, I believe this from the factory is supposed to be pink. Now, it's been so filthy and heat soaked and everything else and melted in a few locations that it is now a weird tannish brown color. This is your 12 volt ignition wire for the HEI distributor. So I kind of traced this back. It's got some nicks in it, some burns and everything else. So I'm probably just going to kind of trim this back somewhere in here and solder and heat shrink a wire onto that and extend it. This wire that looks pink in the camera is actually purple. And they've already put some sort of splice on it. This is your, this goes to your starter solenoid. So it's got to go on the Chevy back down to the starter. On the Oldsmobile, it would have been on this side. So they've already extended it. We're going to, again, cut this back and extend it with good wire because it's got damage to it too. This wire is brown. They have already extended it poorly with a random blue wire, but this goes up to your alternator. Obviously, we're going to fix that because that's garbage. And then, I'm not 100% certain, but I do believe this one random wire on this car that comes out, I believe this is the original TAC signal. And there would have been a filter screwed on right here. So this wire hits the filter and then it goes over to the TAC output on the HEI distributor. This is all sorts of chopped up, beat to hell. It at one point was laying against the exhaust manifold because they weren't using this. They had the aftermarket tack, but I'm going to try to get this working. I got to get a new regulator. I'm going to try wiring it up without the, or not regulator, filter. I'm going to try wiring it up without the filter and see if it works. It should, if anything, the needle just won't be steady on the tack from kind of transient voltages and whatnot. But I'm going to go out to the salvage yard and try to find some filter off of some 70s or 80s GM and put that in there. But we're going to try and use the Rally Pack filter. Also out of this group of wires is a brown wire that is typically kind of off by itself. You'll see down there, there's a little connector or whatever. I believe, don't quote me, but I think I tested this, that's why it's stripped. This comes on with your parking lights. And it goes up to the hood light. So if the hood is open, the light doesn't come on, but if you turn on the parking lights, then the light will come on. And it's got some sort of a tilt sensor in it. And then all of your other wires that come out of that plug down there, all this stuff, that's all your headlights and all that stuff. So that'll get all routed back around through the core support and back out to their appropriate locations. Other things we have to address, I have all sorts of vacuum lines all over the place. The original HVAC system, all the blend doors and all that stuff, that's all controlled through vacuum. And I'll use my 82 cutlass as a reference for where everything goes, but I think there's supposed to be a vacuum canister down here, or at least on my 82 that was a 6-cylinder, the vacuum canister was right down here. I want to say actually on this one there was one mounted right behind the headlight on the passenger side, so maybe on the V8s they ran them in a different spot. I haven't looked at that car yet to see if any of the parts are still in that one, but if I have to, wait, nope, that doesn't even have a heater box, never mind. That's all gone. But anyway, we're going to try to kind of work out what's going on with that. This is for the heater, or the HVAC. They had it wired in hot with the battery. I believe that this ties in kind of similar to the way this one does, where it's protected by a fusible link. I think that this is supposed to do the same thing. It just ties in and goes down there. But we'll figure that out. Having the blower motor working is kind of the least of my concerns at this point. But that's kind of where I'm at with things. I'll throw it on time lapse, kind of see if I can take care of some of that stuff, and we'll move along. I think I'm going to route the wires across top just like they were from the factory, but instead of dropping down and going back behind the header, over the starter and all that crap, I think I'm going to bring all of the wiring right down through the valley over here and then bring it down and around the back side of the header over to, that gives quite a bit of clearance and airflow to keep it cool through here. Whereas if I come down through there, that's awful close to a bunch of crap that gets real hot. So we're going to try to avoid that. We're in here, we're fixing wiring, we're extending it and repairing it anyway. We may as well choose our own routing path, keep it all safe. So, like I said, time lapse, and we'll go. So I'm not sure what else showed up on the time lapse, but we got everything all cleaned up, wires extended, everything comes over across here. down across the valley, made up the wires to the alternator here, and then brought everything else back down through, and it's kind of stuck over near where the starter. We're going to have two hot wires through fusible lengths that go land on the starter on the main terminal along with the battery cable. And then we're also going to have the purple that goes to the starter solenoid to actually activate the starter. Off of the battery terminal, the positive battery terminal, I'm going to run a wire up to right here. There's different ways that this can be wired, but I think that should work just fine. Still haven't done anything with this wire off of the HVAC. I got to kind of look into it and see what I think is going to be the best route to tie that in. I'm not super concerned about that right now. As far as fusible lengths are concerned, this right here is fusible link wire. I think I said earlier they typically try to size it 2 sizes smaller than your actual wire. My one, it's a little big, but nobody locally carries fusible link in the right size, and something is better than nothing on this. I think we're going to be okay with it, but they are 2 different size wires from the factory, but we'll be fine. When you connect this, 6 to 8 inches of fusible link wire is all you want. You don't want to, like I bought it, it came with like a 5 or 6 foot chunk or whatever, but you only want 6 to 8 inches of wire. When you connect this to your wire, I don't think you're supposed to solder this. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I don't think you're supposed to solder it. If you've watched my other videos with wiring and stuff, you know that I prefer to solder and heat shrink, but on these we are going to crimp them with butt connectors that are similar to these here with the heat shrink tubing on them. That's what we're going to be using on these, and then I'll probably throw another piece of heat shrink over top of that also. But I've got to get everything kind of routed down where it all belongs, get everything cut to length, dressed nicely, and then I'll disconnect it all, pull it all back out, and we'll cover everything up in either split loom or the like this style of braided sheathing. I don't know if I can get this, if I have the right size to get it over that, and I don't have the stuff like that that's split, so we might just use regular split loom, which is what it would have had from the factory anyway. Regular split loom is like this stuff right here. I think I have that in the right size, but we'll put something on it again, and maybe temporary, who knows. So I'm going to move along with that. You may have noticed that I cut the ends off of the tack and the HEI distributor power wires. I did buy some new connectors right here that I'll actually use to make that connection, because the ones that were on there were in poor shape. But these, I've got the distributor sitting here. This is made to click right into that, so it'll be a little bit better setup. So I'm going to keep plugging away with this, see what I can actually record, but probably won't get any coverage just because it's up underneath there and hard to get a camera angle in there. But bring you back when we get a little further with it. All right, so yesterday I kind of, I don't know, lost ambition, I guess you could say, to keep working on stuff. So I quit and got myself cleaned up, finally actually shaved, got a haircut from the wife, so now I am pretty much officially bald, but that is what it is. You don't care about that. So got all the wires dressed, everything is terminated basically. Still on call today, so last day of on call. Let's hope it doesn't screw me and make me have to go to work. But hey, it's Sunday, so if I have to go into work, at least it's double time. But anyway, wires are dressed. Everything is good to go electrically, I think. Still have to deal with the HVAC power, but I think what I'm probably going to end up doing is just running that wire straight to the battery and installing a fuse there for now. It'll work. The wire will be protected. It's fine. We'll dress it up, make it look nice and all that stuff. Still have to put the distributor in and all that stuff. HVAC, the heater core, I would like to replace that before we get the hood back on and all that stuff, so I might kind of tinker with that a little bit. But power steering hoses can go on. Then I think at that point, then we can start putting the fenders on and start finishing up the fuel system. And core support, radiator, all that good stuff. So hopefully that's what we're going to do. I'll get you spun around and show you what the wiring turned out like. Is it perfect? Nope. But I think it's 100 times better than what was in there before. So we're good to go there. Wires are at least going to all be protected with fusing and all that stuff. Wire connections all soldered and heat shrinked, or like I said earlier or yesterday with the Fusible Lengths, they are crimped with heat shrink connectors. So, you know, we've got a better situation than what we had before, safer situation for sure. So get you flipped around, show you what we did, and then not sure exactly what I'm going to work on next. I got some other stuff to do today. I probably should have mowed my lawn yesterday because it's been kind of on and off sprinkling now, and the grass is wet. But if it dries up, I got to get my lawn mowed today. So we're going to do what we can with it. Hopefully we don't get called out. Might get to mow the lawn, who knows, but we'll see what we can do. All right, so all of the wiring is covered, routed. All the connections that I can make are made. Got that plug-in put on for the HEI distributor. I, for right now, just have it wired to that tan wire that was coming out of this grommet right here. But there is a quick disconnect right here, so if it doesn't work properly and I got to put the filter in, then it's easy to just go ahead and switch that and click it in. All the two power wires with the fusible lengths on the end and the starter wire are routed down through, and then they go around along with the positive cable and back over to the starter. Everything clears the exhaust headers, and I went ahead and ordered different headers for it. I know this is temporary, but like my buddy Andy that passed away 10 years ago used to say to me, it's only money, you'll make more. So got new exhaust headers coming on, and the reason for that is the last person cut the flanges off at the other end. They're rusty, so trying to weld new ones on, it's gonna be an issue. So whatever, new exhaust headers are coming sometime this next week, hopefully, fingers crossed. But yeah, everything with the wiring should still clear, because obviously the new headers are gonna have to cut back like that too, so we'll see how that goes. Battery cables are just sitting here waiting. We're going to come off of the hot over to the alternator, and then this ground here will go to the front fender once it's all in place. The ground is grounded up here on the intake manifold, which should be fine. The old ground, the body ground that goes from the bolt up here back to, it's supposed to go to one of the bolts in the transmission. I replaced that because whatever they had in there before was all melted up and crappy. I know on my 82, it's just a braided cable that goes down. I didn't have any of that, so it's just got a 10 gauge wire. And instead of using a self-tapper or sheet metal screw like they use from the factory, I bought a riv nut gun, actually a couple of them. I've got a small handheld one and the big one. Bought them on Amazon, never used them before, but works awesome. I just put a 1/4 20-inch riv nut in there so that it can actually be tightened down good and grip well. And then what I did, and I'm not sure if I can get the camera in there, but the dipstick tube just has a bolt through it to hold the dipstick for the transmission in place. And then off of what was left there, I put a ring terminal on it and a nut so that it's not actually bolted through to the engine, it's bolted to the transmission, but the transmission is bolted to the engine, so should be good. So that should take care of any grounding issues that we had, because obviously there's grounding issues with as melted as the tape and everything was on that old one. So everything should be good with that. I will probably also run an auxiliary ground to the frame and tap a hole or something on the frame so that the frame is grounded well as well. But that's where we're at with things. I'll see what I can get done with it here today and keep plugging away at things. All right, guys, so I realize it's a little bit premature, but I'm going to try starting the engine. I just dropped the distributor back in it, so that's kind of one of my main reasons for wanting to try starting it, make sure I've got it in the right general vicinity. But I mean, there's still a lot to do. Obviously, the core support and the radiator aren't in there. I didn't hook up the power steering pump or anything like that, but it is what it is. Like I said earlier, I need to mow my lawn, and looks like we've got a good break in the weather to do that, but I want to feel like I accomplished something. So we're going to give it a shot, see if it'll start, and then that's probably it for today. Maybe not necessarily it for the video, but for me personally today, that's going to be probably about it. So I went ahead and put some gas in the float bowls, and I'll go turn the ignition on, and I've got my cheater switch over here. I'll just use that and work the throttle from out here. Yeah, we'll see how that works. And I did put transmission fluid in it. It's not by any means full or topped off, but you know, it's not empty. So it's, you know, hopefully not going to damage the pump or anything like that, starting it up and running it for a few seconds. But I don't know, let's see how it goes. It starts. The timing is nowhere near right, but it does start. I didn't put anywhere near enough gas in the float bowls, but I'll try topping those off real quick and see if we can get it to run for at least more than a half a second. All right, let's see what we get. I suppose I probably should have thought about the fact that the transmission is pumping fluid right out the lines. That was a dumb mistake, but whatever. It runs. Obviously the transmission pump is pumping, so I'm gonna clean up that mess, and yeah, we'll check back after I get the murder scene cleaned up here. All right, so I know I said I was gonna time lapse, kind of doing all this stuff. Didn't work out. My garage is such a mess, I couldn't even find the camera that I used to do time lapses, so I gave up and just threw everything together. So all the hoses are on, hose clamps are good to go. I got kind of in the groove of working on stuff and fired it up, set the base timing on it so I can at least get it to sit there and idle and run. No issues with running the fuel pump like this without the regulator. Everything appears to be good to go. Just have water in the radiator right now, so it's got something to circulate through and for me to make sure there's no leaks. Everything looks good. The only leak I do have is from the oil pressure sending unit, so I've got a new one of those ordered from O'Reilly's. That actually should be in stock to go pick that up. But at this point, I think we're just going to start throwing the fenders back on and kind of buttoning stuff up out here. I do still have to make a extension for the TV cable. I don't know why they make these brackets that work with the Edelbrock intakes and their carburetors, but there's not enough adjustment on this stupid TV cable bracket to get it far enough where it'll actually reach where it attaches on the bottom of the linkage. I had the same issue on my other Cutlass, so it comes with an extra bracket, and I'm just gonna probably tack the two of them together and extend it out. That way we can get that done. But we aren't at the point of driving it yet, so I'm not concerned about that. I did throw more transmission fluid in it, but haven't gotten it up to temp to like all the way to really check it, but I did make sure to put some in there so that it's circulating through. That also is so I could check for any leaks. The other thing I did, and I don't think I pointed it out before, but you may have noticed it, all of the wiring for the computerized carburetor setup that was on originally had all been chopped off, and it was just hanging down below there. So I went ahead and I'm not sure if the light will really pick it up because I don't have my flashlight, but I just took a piece of the leftover floorboard panels that I did in the last video and cut a piece to fill that hole, threw some silicone or gasket maker, whatever, on it to seal it up. So that crap's all gone. Hole's sealed, won't get water in there, all that good stuff. So, like I said, gonna start putting stuff back together. We'll probably pull this fender back off so I can clean everything up. The line lock for the brakes, it's going to stay there, but I'm going to redo the mounting of it, use some riv nuts to actually bolt that thing on there. So I'll probably just take it off, clean all that junk because it's filthy, and then put it back together. But not much to see there with it. But that's kind of where we're at with things, and I am going to keep plugging away and move forward with it. Alright, slight change of plans before I start throwing the fenders on. I've got a whole bunch of door hinge pin kits here, because like I've mentioned, I've got multiples of these cars, and all of them need new hinge pins. And I was kind of thinking about it. I mean, you can do it with the fenders on, but maybe it'll be easier if we just, since we got this all tore apart, do one hinge at a time and just unbolt the hinges, pull them out, rebuild it, put it back in, and then do the other one. And then we don't have to screw around with rigging anything up to, to keep the door from falling off, yada yada. So we're gonna try that. I don't know if it'll work, but we'll see. so we got the hinge pin replaced on the one. It's really not that hard. Did end up using my little 20-ton press to push the old pin out after I ground off the where they had it kind of beat in so that the pin doesn't fall out. I probably will go ahead and put a little tack weld or something on the tops of the pin just so it can't fall back out, but it's a swedge fit, so I don't think it's going anywhere, but eventually we'll do that. I'm going to do the other one on the passenger side here, and then when I pull off the fender over there, I'll do those while I've got it apart. This car, actually, the doors surprisingly aren't sagging too bad, but when you pull out the old bushings, you definitely can see where they're wallered out pretty good. But totally not a difficult thing. The hardest thing is that stupid spring on the top hinges. I don't know if they make some sort of a spring compressor tool for those. I don't know. Obviously, I don't have it. Wouldn't recommend doing it the way I did it with the vise and some tie wire or whatnot, but it is what it is. I got it done. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and finish up with that stuff, and I don't know, hopefully maybe the next time I come back, show you what I did with the TV cable, and hopefully we can put it in gear, see if it actually works. Fingers crossed. Like I said, it runs, so we're good there. But I don't know, kind of move along with it and see how it goes. All right, guys, so moving forward, actually about 2 weeks, I did get the other hinges replaced, and I lost some footage, so it didn't show anything, but you really didn't miss anything. I just got the fenders put back on, so front end of the car is back together, and all that good stuff. I have started the car, put it in gear, moved it back and forth on the lift a little bit, but haven't actually gotten it out on the road and driven it, so not sure 100% how it is. I don't have time tonight to actually take it for a drive and try anything. I've had to move a whole bunch of crap around in the garage. So right now my hood is propped up against the car. I got to repaint my hinges before I put that on, but had to kind of get some stuff cleared out. You'll notice that the car on the trailer is no longer in the garage. It is probably, to my neighbor's dismay, it is sitting in my backyard on the trailer covered with a tarp because I had to make some room. Unfortunately, my aunt passed away and she left her Jeep to me, so I have to fly down to Florida tonight and drive that thing back. So fingers crossed that all goes well with that. But when I get back, plans are get the hood put back on and take it for a drive. But we'll see how that all goes down. But for right now, I will show you, I did get the TV cable put in. You do have to modify the Edelbrock bracket a little bit in order to make the TV cable line up and everything. Even though the bracket's made for it, it's not, it isn't right. So flip you around here and kind of show you what we got with that, and then the next time we'll hopefully be taking it for a spin. So here we are. All right, so the TV cable, and I know it's kind of hard to get a shot here, but I had some aluminum strip that's about an 1/8 inch thick or so, and all I did was I cut it to extend this TV cable bracket out a little bit further, because the way it is, when you get this Edelbrock bracket, it sets the TV cable way back in here, and with these cars, you got to have this TV cable is too short. You got to get it bumped up further. So what I ended up doing is just bolting that bracket on there, made my own screw holes and everything. Again, not sure if you can really see it, but mounted that and then put a couple of the bolts in that. So this is still adjustable. It's just the whole thing has been moved forward. So But yeah, other than that, not much has changed. Like I said, front end is all put back together, still looks as crappy as it did before, and will continue to, at least for this year. But yeah, we will, like I said, when I get back from picking that Jeep up in Florida, we'll come back and take this thing for a drive and wrap this video up. Alright guys, we're going to have a little bit of an abrupt end to the video here. I know that I said in the previous clip before I went on my little unexpected trip down to Florida for my aunt's passing that I would do a clip with driving it and everything, but unfortunately it's construction season here in the Midwest, which also coincides with the mow your lawn 2 or 3 times a week season, so unfortunately I didn't feel like dragging out the camera and all that stuff, but I did take it for a drive. Everything seems to be working as well as expected. It's very loud because it's just open headers right now with some downpipes put on it, but transmission is working properly, torque converter lockup is working properly, which was kind of my main concern. As I probably mentioned in the video earlier, I had this transmission in my other Cutlass for a while. It is a Buick Grand National transmission, so it's got the upgraded valve body and all that stuff in it. When I had it in my other car, the torque converter wasn't locking up in 4th gear like it was supposed to, but apparently that was related to the actual torque converter that I had in there itself. There was something not right with it, but with the new torque converter, it seems to be working just fine. Now that lockup kit that I have in it has a vacuum operated switch, and it just kind of locks up whenever it goes into 4th gear. Not sure yet if I really like that, just because I don't necessarily always want it locked up in 4th gear. There's some adjustment on the switch I might kind of play with, see if we can get it to, you know, not lock up automatically as soon as it goes into 4th gear. I'm not 100% certain how that kit works, but if nothing else, I can bypass it and just use a push button to lock it up as I see fit. That's neither here nor there. We'll kind of play around with that and see how it goes. For right now, this car is kind of at a standstill. Being as busy as I am right now and as warm as it's going to get out here in the garage, probably not going to work on it a whole lot. But I do have some interior stuff that I want to get done. The previous owner had painted a bunch of the interior panels and it's all peeling off, looks like crap. So I'm going to go through, strip the old paint off. I do have some dye that's the original sand gray color, and I'm going to try and refresh a little bit of that stuff. It's a little bit cart before the horse because, like I think I mentioned earlier, I want to pull the body off the frame so I can do the inner and outer rocker panels on it, but that'll be in the fall. So I'm not going to go too crazy with the interior, but it would be nice to have it sound deadened and at least have all of the seats in it and stuff like that. So that's kind of the plan with it, but it'll be a little while before you see a video on this again. I will be putting out a video eventually here for the vehicle that I picked up down in Florida and kind of show you guys that, some plans with that, not anything crazy or anything like that, but kind of so you guys have an idea of what's going on, and it'll be something for a little bit more content. I'm trying to get videos out more regularly, but it's hard when you have a real job to do. So in the meantime, make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe buttons so that you get a notification button as well, so you know when new videos are coming out, and stay tuned and see what we come up with next here. So until then, we'll catch you guys later. Thanks for watching.